So I talked to folks. I talked to Jabber and Jerry and the officers about what has been bothering me for probably the last 3 months, and that is the this one announcement every couple of weeks about some spectacularly large data center, most of which are being built in Texas and the occasional Missouri and Ohio, and it's just jaw dropping how presumptuous some of these designs are. It's as if the audience that they're pitching them to have never heard about a large even a Walmart warehouse or something like that. These things are beyond belief in their scope. And so what I'm going to do is that link there, that first YouTube link, is hopefully, yeah, that first YouTube link there is where I got a lot of my details from. So they talk about XAI. One of Musk's companies has a huge one that straddles 2 states, and that's a Colossus 2. Now, why a lot of these data center designs are spectacularly flawed, I'll talk about mostly on the technical side. I'll talk a little bit about some of the business issues too. I think it's if you haven't seen the reference sources that I'm going to reference, please do. I'll put the links in there because they have the receipts. They've got the details and the receipts. They know exactly how much these things are spec to cost and how how unoccupied they are right now. Now, notably, this isn't going to be my rant on AI, and I still use the term so-called AI because 5 and 10 years ago we didn't make a distinction between intelligence, artificial intelligence, and artificial general intelligence. We only had 2 things. We had human intelligence and artificial intelligence. But to be quite honest, it was too good of a marketing term not to use. AI is an extremely compelling concept. Spielberg made a movie called AI, and so this particular phrase has been around our vocabulary for quite a while. But I think it was kind of co-opted by the search engine optimization crowd for a function which is decidedly not what they used to call artificial intelligence. But it is a phenomenon. So I'm not going to slam on it today. Ed Zitron and Brendan Dell are the 2 YouTube influencers that I get a lot of my content from, and they do pretty much spell out the difference between the product that is being marketed and the product that you're actually getting when you buy something. LLMs isn't the last word on AI. Some really fascinating stuff has come out of DeepMind, and I don't think they have an LLM at Google DeepMind. I don't think. But then again, some of the stuff that's coming out of these spectacular so-called AI company releases is stuff that nobody was really asking for. Now, I know they've made great strides in particular math discoveries, but these were areas of math that there weren't too many mathematicians working in because there was no particular payoff. I understand this. You've heard in the last couple of days that they disproved one of Paul Erdosh's conjectures. So that's great if you can get a problem like that. Finding a single counter example to disprove somebody's conjecture is much easier to do than to create a proof. But some of these AI engines can do proofs as well. There's been some very interesting stuff happen in the practical and theoretical math crowd. But here again, I think we would have either discovered them eventually without AI, or we would have not cared. I think that's where a lot of places where we were before these AI products came out was definitely in the not care community. So my rant against data centers is effectively, the U.S. has more than half the data centers in the world. Now, a lot of them are the ones that we had. We had a spectacular buildup after the COVID years and after 9/11, 2001, and this was all. There's a really good documentary on PBS called Surveillance Nation, and it was all in response to the fact that we if you read the post-mortem on the intelligence assessments of 9/11, one of their big gripes was, hey, we didn't share information between intelligence services, and so now we do, to a fault. It's pretty much anybody in any intelligence service can pull down communiques from the embassies. This was one of the things that happened when we had other intelligence failures. Kind of the opposite problem of the lack of intelligence sharing, and this resulted in a bunch of things getting mailed to Julian. Is it Assange, the guy from? Anyway, don't want to get too far off topic, but there's if you're familiar with the term, I believe the current term is Mango. Microsoft, Apple, Amazon, Nvidia, Google, and OpenAI. I think it used to be Fang, but that was before Facebook changed its name. So I think the current SLA is Mango. Now they represent large percentage of the economy and a disproportionately large percentage of the indexes. And I think it's always interesting when some of these new companies come online that they just say, well, I know this stock's being traded on Nasdaq, but let's put it into the Dow Jones Industrial Average. It sounds like cooking the books when this sort of stuff happens, and that kind of happened this week with the with one of Elon Musk companies, SpaceX, was basically rejiggered to optimize everything, every sort of checkbox you can optimize on to improve its IPO value. I've got something on that in a little later, but so my counterexample for all of these data centers is my MIT thesis, and I talked about pairing before you approach an investor and say, hey, I want to build a data center and I want to get into the top 500. So I'm not even going to tell you what green 500 numbers I'm going to have because I'm not going to talk about power. I'm just going to talk about flops. We're going to have a 2 exaflop facility, and I know that's going to be gigawatts of electricity, but don't worry about that. That's kind of how a lot of these data centers got pitched and funded, and you of course can't do that, which is why only about 50% of them are getting built right now. It's kind of like, well, you should have told us you needed transformers that there's a 5-year back order on, because we wouldn't have broken ground if we had known that the entire supply chain wasn't queued up. So that describes a lot of data centers that got funded, and most big companies, most big Fortune 500 and 5,000 companies, they sit down and they do a cost benefit analysis, and they say, okay, let's do some sort of estimate on, what if we have another blip in the economy, or another COVID or something like that. So there's a lot of planning and pulling insurance policies and hedges and stuff like that out when you do multi-million-dollar building construction. Apparently, very little of that happened with most of these designs. Certainly XAI, they just started building. Meta converted a building. They were about halfway done with one of their H form factor traditional data centers, and they repurposed it to an AI data center at considerable embedded expense. So the other phenomenon we're seeing a lot of is, and this truly this happened with the SpaceX IPO, is if you're in the business, there's a category that SpaceX used to be in when they filed their disclosures, and they were in the same category as Boeing. Well, they're not in the same category as Boeing anymore. They're in whatever one covers AI data centers. I think it's called computer manufacturing or something. And that's because they wanted to join their, the 2 or 3 cash gaining divisions, including Starlink, into one big plan that would allow them to insert their spectacularly large loss leading division of XAI, the AI data center. So there is a lot of coverage on the business channels. Some of the YouTube influencers I had up there, they talk about how they could have possibly filed this with a straight face. And so now the IPO, The stock was actually it's only been on the stock market for a couple of days. It's up another couple of $100. I suppose it'll be there for a little while, but if they're when 75% of your business plan is attached to a loss leading enterprise like GPT provision, and they're all losing money on it right now. I've heard crazy numbers on OpenAI's GPT just losing a couple of $100 uh, for every customer. So that kind of money adds up. And here again, I can give you exact stats on that. There's a lot of companies that you can't get great stats, but I think you can with OpenAI. They're starting to open up their books a little bit. So this company, Allbirds, used to make shoes, and now they pivoted their business plan to AI so that they can take advantage of all of the valuations that companies that are in the AI business are making. Now, again, the Mango crowd, the six big companies, are also pitching these crazy data center ideas like data centers in space. And there's just a considerable amount of technical evidence that that's not a good place to put a data center. Their case is kind of, well, we can have essentially fiber between all of them. We'll just use light communications or something. But it's not, even though space is pretty cold, you can't cool things unless you've got circulation. So it's not even reasonable to put data centers in space. The capex cost alone, they'd be able to solve all of their terrestrial data center problems long before they can put these things in space. And of course, if you look at all of the stuff coming from China, either the stuff that's public domain and open source and looks to be exploit free so far, it's definitely cheaper. Now you end up using more tokens with the Chinese LLMs, but still, if you're pretty clever on how you use your prompts and your tokens, a lot of these open source models are a heck load cheaper than the proprietary models. Then, of course, we have backlash. I think you've all seen that the state of Maine has had some sweeping, sort of overbroad outlawing of data centers. There's plenty of data centers that aren't complete. We had again, the U.S. has had data centers in in abundance for a couple of decades now. A lot of them are serving the kind of products that Americans want. Amazon has lots of data centers, and they've kind of distributed them, around the U.S. They've gotten some better deals out of certain states. Texas really incentivizes people like Oracle to put data centers in their state, but there's some good geographically local Amazon data centers that are there because the customer is paying for it. Now AI data centers, yeah, it's progressively less and less people that are asking for it. So we may see some federal legislation here pretty soon. There's a new product out. This is called Extra. Now, NVIDIA is working with companies to put their really high power, high energy usage racks into your house. If you've got if you've got 100 kilowatts to spare, they'll put it in a house. However, I think what they're looking for is much more small businesses. Now, you could put a rack. There's a lot of details on this particular offering, which I won't go into here now, but I will at the end. We can look at their webpage. It's probably a better deal for if you're one of these big Mango companies and you can't get a data center built in some place because of the electrical infrastructure supply chain problems, you could put one of these racks at someone's house and then just deal with all of the bandwidth and latency issues that come with separating something off from a tightly bound data center. I don't know. This is somewhat contrary to the rest of their logic, but that's all I've got, folks, for slides. I do have. I'm more than willing to speak extemporaneously and impromptu, and I'd certainly love to have this be a dialogue. But I am really surprised at how these big smart companies just rushed into this without really considering some of the edge scenarios. Feast or famine on the on the two standard deviations away. It appears that they did not do that analysis because they just started building the data centers and decided, oh, we'll fix it. We'll fix the plane in flight. So, yeah. Thanks, John. I remember the sort of the big transitions from client server. There was the economic principles of economies of scale, and Andrew Carnegie says put everything in one basket and watch that basket. Bob Metcalf says separate, divide things up, divide compute up, but increase the network interconnections between the two. That's kind of Metcalf's law. So that, I think Metcalf's law makes a little bit more sense. If you have halfway decent bandwidth to the internet, you could put one of these NVIDIA racks at your house. But most people don't have. I think the network is in much worse shape. Network infrastructure is in much worse shape than the compute infrastructure.
So considering that these aren't going to go away anytime soon, if you were a thinking person building out some sort of a strategy for data centers, what would you think is a better way to go about this in a way that actually predicts the fact that markets are cyclical and disasters happen and things like that?
So I think I'm going to predict two things happening in parallel. One is there will be at least one spectacular bankruptcy. And so whoever that is, they're going to be the Enron of the AI data center business. And you're going to be able to get data centers on the cheap when they go belly up. GE Wind swept in and bought all of Enron's wind resources up after Enron went bankrupt. I see somebody, maybe Oracle or Microsoft, taking over one of these abandoned data centers or one of these partially built data centers, and giving people, if you really like your $20 a month Chat GPT service right now, that may be coming back. It's not going to come back if OpenAI is to survive, but if they go belly up and someone takes over their resources, they may be able to sell you that service at $20 a month. Right now, that's basically OpenAI is subsidizing you to at least 10x, but maybe more than that. You're getting $200 worth of tokens for $20 a month, from what I understand. Certainly, those YouTube videos I pointed to talk about that.
I'll take it when they're at a loss right now.
Yeah, and there's going to be loss leading access for a while yet. I understand OpenAI isn't even making money with their $200 a month plan. So, yeah. So that'll be there until maybe the end of the year, and then everybody's going to raise their prices. I got to figure.
Yeah, a couple of weeks ago, I gave old Llama a try. That's the thing where you can basically download some of the open LLMs and just run them on your local machine. Now, I don't have any expensive NVIDIA cards to try it with, but I have one machine up in my attic that has 64 gigs of RAM, and when I ran the thing, it basically felt like the 80s when I used to have a 300-baud modem to connect to the college computers. It was really slow going through the logic. But the end result, once it finished, was pretty much on a par with what I see out in on the online chats. So it actually is feasible to do that, and you don't even need a network connection to do that. So once the video cards have enough memory to handle the big models are affordable, it'll be easy to do the stuff at home.
Yeah, I think you if you're fortunate enough to have a local LLM. So I've got one that's very deep but not very broad. I can't ask it any questions outside of the particular domain, but I'm happy with it. And yeah, like you say, effectively no token charges. You know, some of the Chinese ones, some of the low bit, the 4-bit, and the you know the Microsoft 1-bit LLM. A lot of those you can stick onto a decent server, home machine, and get you know get everything you want out of it. You can't get everything that you can get. You know, the $200 plan with Claude and OpenAI is pretty good. I mean, if you're lazy and you want to knock something out really quick, that definitely you know, you put a halfway decent prompt together, that'll deliver on that. But if what you need is a lot of small questions rather than a few big questions, home LLM is the way to go. And there's you know, DeepSeek's pretty good at that too, the Chinese model.
The big question is what the home electric bill will be. What is it going to cost when you run one of this?
You said you're using Olama?
Yeah, I gave it a try. I just did like 2 or 3 little prompts. And I got pretty reasonable result from it. Well, like I said, I put the widget that showed thinking, and it was going through the thing. The text was like crawling along like it was like 300 baud modem. That's because I was using a CPU instead of a GPU, so there was no parallelism. But the 64 gigs was enough memory to run the model. Now, some of the really big models that you do for video, I think you need probably something like 192 gigs of memory.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. In my office, we've got individual groups that, due to the nature of the work, have to run local models, and they run on, you know, with something like Olama with the small model, and then open code for their coding agents. Some of them, I mean, our desktops are, you know, $12,000 desktops, and we do have a couple Proxmox clusters with GPUs, but you can run this stuff on very small equipment and either experiment or just get, like you said, you know, answers to smaller questions.
Yeah, I found it pretty good for coding recently. I had a couple of situations I was working on where something was going wrong with one of my programs. I spent hours on trying to track it down. I couldn't figure it out. And I just pasted the question into it. I pointed out the typo that was causing all the problems, like within a couple seconds. And I could have saved a lot of time if I'd asked it earlier than that. Okay, I guess I can start my presentation now. It's pretty much for that. Okay. So, share my desktop. My presentation is going to be about the, what's that?
I was going to say, before you start, there might be a couple of quick questions in the chat that Kurt can answer.
Oh, sure.
If
All right,
not,
I'll take a
sorry
look
about
at
that.
chat and,
Let me get back to you guys. I'll be right back.
oh, okay. Well, anyway, my talk is about this. This is a video management system I've been building the past couple of years. I did a preview of it back in January when our scheduled speaker never made it. Of course, we didn't record it back then. So I put together some slides on the various components of it. Let's start by sharing the desktop. I'm sharing the is it screen sharing? Here it is. Entire screen. Okay, so there you go. There you go. There you go. Here's my slides. I've been setting this thing up This is a little interface I have for like playing all my videos. And back during COVID, I tried out a number of video players, video systems, and I didn't like the way they worked at the time. I'm not sure if I actually understood what they were doing. But then when I tried them out, it seemed like they wanted to take all my videos and make a separate copy of them all, which would take in way too much disk space. And then they had these strict requirements about going in and change all the file names. And I figured it would make more sense to just have the video, have the IMDb IDs for each of the video files, and then load it up into a Postgres server, and just to use that structure. And so this is a screenshot of the system on the site here. So anyway, what I basically do is when I get new videos, I put them on one of my hard drives. I have a bunch of USB hard drives and set them up so they're shared over NFS, read-only. I basically tag each one in a metadata file with the corresponding IMD PID. Then a couple of cron jobs run every night to gather it all up and update the Postgres. So, first of all, here's the this first one is a script. It's a utility script that I use in several of the cron jobs. It basically locates all the all the USB volumes that are connected at SAM, and then let me demonstrate that in the terminal windows. Scripts. Oh, that's a different tab. Oh, it's wrong. That's a new one. Okay, so okay, that didn't. I want the one that's a bit bigger, so there we go. Okay. This first script was it's called USB volumes. We don't see all of it here, so I'll bring up on the terminal here. These all these things to find all the drives. So we can share it running here. Oh, actually, that's not going to work on this machine. So I have to get to one of the machines that actually has the drives on. Okay. Run that, and it finds these 3 volumes, these 3 different USB drives. So then the first script that uses that the video TQ SQL, it finds all the I should explain this part. On metadata, the name of the metadata files is .imdb IDs. The first cron script basically finds all the files and puts them in a big directory, a single text file at the top level of each of the USB volumes. Oh, I'm going a little too fast there. All right. The problem with the USB drives is that the locate command, the FTP doesn't scan the USB drives. So I had to write a cron job to do that every night. If I'm basically simulating what the locate command does. So this one generates the SQL tables to load in Postgres. Get loading as a separate job. Let's see. to top to the bottom. Seems so frozen. There's network issues here. Try away. Try this again. Different tab. Oops. The machines, okay. Here. It's called so because it gets the those 3 volume names, well, actually 4 in this case. I'll show you one of those files first. Oops, it's separate. It's separate from the. Oh, I was not there yet. A lot of videos, so you separate them into decades. One of these small ones, I guess. Here we have a bunch of files. And this is how I set up the metadata. So first field is the file name. The second field is the source of the metadata. The third is the type. The fourth is the ID. Go through each volume. Look for the file zeros are fine. Oh, I'll show you some. Show the other one first. Each volumes, well, it's fine within that in the top level of the directory. It always had a lot of I/O problems when I first set this up, and I was writing to the USB drive at the same time I was trying to find on it. So I modified that to write into my home directory first, and doing a sort. The files were so huge, it was just running sort normally really didn't work very well. So after Googling, I found this was much more efficient running sort. I used I set the I basically turned off the UTF thing, which slowed the thing up. I set it up to use all the CPUs, all the cores, and this prevents it from overloading the memory and causing it to slop. And then Apparently, using .o for the output file instead of redirecting was more efficient too. Once that was done, and then someone copied over to the file on USB drive. At the beginning and to show how much time it took. And then, oh, come on. It's sitting really bogged down because the several sessions are running here. Once again, gets all the dwelling names, iterates through each of them. It's for any video that has a tag on it, it's a line into the video SQL next file. And if it's missing it, I put that line into a missing file. So I can look those up, and that tells me I need to go add the tags to those files. And part of this, of course, is goes to each one of these IMDb ID files that runs the subroutine at the top. It structure that IMDb tag. So I put that in there because I figure I might have some files that aren't in the IMDb, so I have some other protocol and use the same file for that. Let's strip out the comments. And just took the various rows. I put the IMDb ID, the file name, and the manifest path where the directory is. And that one case was missing from that was the video files that were. I first thought would the script I just showed you. We find if there's a file name in the metadata file, but the file itself is missing, that one would be to the missing file or a list of the missing things. This is the opposite. This finds video files that don't have a tag on it. They're in this it's missing file. So again, I use that to figure out when I need the tag. I'm going to go down the slides here. Compose. Oh, yeah, so this is a script I wrote to automatically download the IMDb databases from the public non-commercial data sets that they put out every day. Actually, there are two jobs. There's one job that downloads the files every day, and then the script loads them into the Postgres database, basically in a set of shadow tables, so it doesn't disrupt the operational. It doesn't disrupt usage of the while the files are loading in. Once you're loaded in, they're loading in a Postgres commit. So I transaction. So when I commit the transaction, that's why it deletes the old tables and renames the new tables in a single atomic operation. So there's no downtime while it's reloading all the names. And one other thing. some of the directories, some of the folders had a lot of videos, even split up over decades. So I set this. I found this thing that does logarithmic navigation bars. I couldn't find the original site where I first downloaded it, so I found this other site that basically has a different implementation of the same thing, and that's worked. Here's the test page I wrote to it. I actually copied this off the Stack Exchange site. So right now we can see the one here. It's not very impressive with that. So let's give it, let's say 5,000 pages. You have quick access to the pages near where we are, up to 6 of them. That's like units of 10, then units of 100, units of 1,000. So you can quickly zero into what you're looking for. So on any page you can see like the 60 pages immediately before the edit. This makes it a lot easier to go through really large data sets rather than like the traditional nav bars that most sites use. Most that I've seen, they have just a few at the beginning and maybe a few in the middle, or where you happen to be, and then a few at the end. And it takes forever clicking through it to get through data set this big. And here's the let's say we got it. Tons of stack over. That's it. I basically take the code here and put it on my local server to demonstrate. Now, actually run the program. Okay, Firefox is the problem. It doesn't want to connect to a something without SSH. So yeah. Okay, I can't demonstrate in Firefox. I just did a rebuild on this laptop. So something taking that to solve Chromium. Looks like that's not happening. Yes, I guess I'm going to talk now. So if anyone has any questions, feel free to ask. I need to stop sharing. There we go. Not hearing anything.
What do you want to hear?
I don't know. I was wondering if I lost the connection or something because the phone went dead.
I'm just wondering why your background isn't flickering, but when Jerry and one of the others had the pseudo-transparent background, theirs were blinking, but yours isn't, even though you're the one with lousy network connection. Go figure.
Well, I got 3 different machines connected to the session, so it's kind of like rush hour. What did you say, Jerry? I didn't hear that.
That's because you were on the moon.
I couldn't quite make that out either.
Just a joke.
Okay, well, I guess for no questions, it's Bill, you're up now.
Oh, you want my rant? All right. I'll give you a rant. Okay. First off, happy Bunker Hill Day and estimated tax day last Monday and Juneteenth on Friday to those who observe. I offered to speak more on AI ethics than cryptoillogic, but I'll briefly touch on that. I ranted on cryptoillogic quite enough already, but crypto-Ponzi is not cryptology. Cryptology wants their word crypto back, so I'm calling it crapto. Some people have asked, please don't say that all crypto is Ponzi. And they're right. Only a few are actually greater full first in, first out Ponzi schemes. Many are simple pump and dump security fraud, just with unregulated, unlisted non-securities. Some are just plain satire, and only an idiot would buy them. That would include NFTs. Some are just plain fraud. Some are broken by design. So no, they're not all Ponzi's. But what ethics could a Ponzi even have? So I'm not discussing that. Well, we'll be discussing ethics in AI, which got a senior Google researcher fired for even raising the question. What is AI? Algorithms used for grad student demos. Specifically, stop that. Specifically, algorithms that don't work yet. The grad student demos are the 20% effort solution that looks like an 80% solution, but is such a bloody hack that it's not extensible. Traditionally, over the last 70 years, we've renamed any branch of AI that's working well enough that actual profit-making companies can add it to their product line. Machine vision spun out eventually. Bibliographic retrieval systems were spun out, 50 years ago. And we don't consider them AI anymore. But expert systems, got rebranded when they were working well enough that you could actually invest in them, and not as a Ponzi scheme. Chess, checkers, Go playing programs were AI when they were research, but they're just in Toys R Us because they work. So if they're selling you AI, it's not ready. Machine learning, on the other hand, is still AI because it still only mostly works. AI comes back in 20-year cycles, just like hairstyles, bad clothing, and music. 1950s and 60s, we saw the first neural nets, which were just incredibly limited by how small the largest computers were back then. But the goal was still to replicate the intelligence of a human. They wanted to have full human intelligence. They could parse a New York Times motor vehicle accident report and answer questions about it. That was the limit, which was still pretty good for the time and the size computer they had. In the 1980s, we built expert systems that were actually useful in business, using AI-derived technology. The neural nets and other machine learning were still pretty limited, but people wanted them to work because then you wouldn't have to hire these knowledge engineers to build the expert system. You could just pour poorly sorted data into it and magically it would work, and it didn't. I investigated both and went to work in expert systems for a while and got object-oriented as a result, which was a win. Around the millennium, there was a self-driving car initiative that pushed machine vision. Neural nets mostly got sidelined in replacement for streamlined things that did something well. They discovered that you could use graphics cards for either neural nets or vector machines. This and last decade, the self-driving cars are almost practical. They mostly don't run into light blue semi-trucks and run over bicyclists, mostly. We've had this explosion in large generative slop bots by throwing massive capacity at those old neural net demos, so that the things that could never scale in the 60s, well, if you throw enough power at them, you can get a lot of heat out of them, and they look like they almost work. But it's still that not quite. So what's the ethics here? Part of it is the securities law that ought to be applying to the crypto logic as well. And maybe don't sell stolen property. Academic ethics, if you're doing A/B experiments on humans, you're supposed to get the independent review board's approval for your experiment first. When you do it out of a corporation, they don't need one because they're not academic. If you're pretending to be an academic in a business environment, maybe you should apply academic ethics to what you're doing. Cite your sources. The fair use copyright exemption is only for academic use or similar, independent investigators. Now, what would ethical use of these artificial technologies be? Well, I've maintained since the 1980s that an audit trail is absolutely essential for ethical use, which biased me toward the expert systems as opposed to the machine learning, because you can audit the expert system and determine which rules caused it to recommend a specific action outcome decision. You can audit what the inputs are. With a large language model that's consumed the entire internet, you can't point to what it consumed. I mean, if it makes clearly unacceptable utterances that come from a bad part of 4chan, you can sort of guess that it came from a bad part of 4chan, but that's not an audit trail. Your training data would have to be ethically sourced. We've updated our terms of service so that we can steal all of your text is not ethically sourced. A fair use training set reused in a product is not ethically sourced, and it's not even legally sourced, as has been proven in court. The Authors Guild is getting much less money than they should get. It should have been turn over 80% of your voting stock, but anything that it wasn't a serious liquidity, a serious equity dilution wasn't punishment enough. Anything we can download irrespective of license is not legal and not ethical. There's a difference between ethics and legality, but if it's against one, it may well be against both. And in this case, it is. So I hold that explanation is important. If you ask one of the chatbots to explain why they gave bad advice, why they didn't do something you asked them to, why they said something that's demonstrably wrong, they will treat that as a new prompt and hallucinate a plausible answer, or maybe they'll say, oh, you got me, because they've got a special rule for that. But that's not an explanation. That's not something you can show a court of law as why your large language model produced that output. Lack of explanation is, however, considered a benefit in a business environment. When they used plain neural nets to screen resumes, having trained it on a stack of resumes they'd seen the previous several years and which were called in for interviews, the neural net didn't know certain names sounded Hispanic or Afro-American vernacular names, didn't know certain names sounded Jewish. It just knew that names with these morphologies got called back more or less than certain other names. So it adopted the prejudices that the humans had had before. It took some work to get a single, I think only single, court decision against a firm that was using one of these. So they very much like that you can't demonstrate why it makes a certain decision. It's safer that way. Not more ethical, safer. That's bad. We want safety that protects the customers and the frontline business users, not so much safety for protecting the shareholder equity. Climate ethics were sort of mentioned in Kurt's discussion. If you can do a job with 1% of the electrical power and heat dissipation of a large language model, and it costs you $5 to hire an artist on Fiverr to do it by hand, as opposed to one of your $20 a month tokens, it would be more ethical to do it the way that provides coffee money to an actual human and uses the power of his desktop Mac instead of the power of a data center. That's fitting the solution to the problem. where these AI companies have attempted to make a general intelligence and failed, and are trying to create a market for their failed almost solution by creating problems that it could do. If you're going to use these things, you need to understand the limitations of the model, just as people using other forms of statistical learning need to understand the limitations of their statistics, their regressions, the holes in their data. You can't just pour stuff in and hope something comes out with the intern turning the crank. That's not reliable. You need to understand the limitations. Expert systems and data science systems meet these desiderata. Business doesn't like them because the experts required to use them need payment, and it's not instant gratification. You have to develop your infrastructure. And when we're trying to produce more profit with less cost, that upfront cost really hurts people that are on a 90-day long-term planning cycle imposed by the stock market. So there's your rant on AI ethics. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk.
So,
Thanks,
Bill,
Bill.
I could definitely see a day where everything everything has some sort of provenance built into it. So if you're a stand-up comedian and you get up on stage and you say, "Take my wife, please," you're not going to get sued by the Youngman Trust, at least not now. But first of all, that particular kind of speech is probably protected. It's also parody, or it's probably homage or something. So that's probably not a good example.
A single joke is not copyrightable. A whole routine is.
Oh,
I'm
is that
not
right?
a lawyer.
Okay.
This is not legal advice.
Okay, so that guy could open himself up to some sort of IP entanglement or something. Anyway, I think my point is, one of these days we'll be able to build some sort of blockchain provenance into this kind of IP, so that when I scrape ResearchGate and I quote or I say something obvious, but I use a British spelling instead of an American spelling, I don't open myself up to plagiarism. Although it almost certainly is plagiarism because I scraped the ResearchGate archive.
Well, I mean, it's not plagiarism if you footnote it.
Yeah, and like I say, that provenance might be built in. That's what the web is all about, right? Is being able to click on a HTML texted word and having it bring it to the original source.
The original knowledge web that Tim Berners-Lee was building on the concept of was World War II president of MIT, Norbert Wiener.
Oh, yeah. No. Oh, cripes! I can picture his.
Yeah, you know who I mean.
I do.
And he was envisioning a hypertext mesh of knowledge well before computers were capable of it, but he knew what they were building in the hydraulics lab. He knew the whirlwind computer.
Yep.
And he could see where that was going to go. And he envisioned a desktop computer that would fill the entire file drawers of the desk with the compute engine, which was a heck of a lot of miniaturization beyond the state of the art then. So he was quite ahead of the time.
Yep. Bush.
Yes, Vannevar
Bush. Yep.
Wiener was running in similar circles and was the classic absent-minded professor.
Oh yeah.
The family moved house because the family had grown, and his wife put their new address on a piece of paper in his pocket when he left for work in the morning. And he used that piece of paper for taking some notes and put it in a file drawer. So at the end of the day, he went to their old address.
Yeah, the stories about him walking down the infinite corridor, dragging his finger along the wall so that he'd recognize his office door.
Wait for it. When he got there and realized nobody was there, he turned to the child sitting by the post box, and asked if she knew where the Wieners had moved to, and she said, "Yes, Daddy, Mommy sent me here to find you."
Oh, good Lord. That's bad.
Exactly.
It's a very Cambridge story.
I mean, the same thing would go for Princeton. The question
Yep.
isn't so much who got Einstein's office, but who got his house.
My wife's cousin helped Einstein grow tomatoes. Einstein
Really?
was having trouble. Yeah,
Didn't they also cause some sort of a bike accident with Einstein?
they might have. I don't remember.
I remember hearing this story once. It was good.
Yeah, that was cousin Bernie.
So Bill, what's this application you're running? It's a mind map thing?
Oh, yeah. This is currently called Freeplane. It's had several names when various people have taken over running it, and various corporations have sicked their IP lawyers on them for the name being too close to a corporate mind map, which is a trademark application. But Freeplane is the current one that you can add on Linux and other platforms.
Could you spell that? I'm hard of hearing.
Freeplane.
Thank you.
Free as in beer and plane as in a sheet of paper.
Hey, can you post that into the chat?
What?
Can you post the URL into the chat?
Oh, probably.
Yeah, it looks like it's got all the tools that you use in things like, is it Miro that you can do this kind of,
Yeah, Miro is the shared access whiteboard that does this sort of stuff.
Yep.
We use a Microsoft product for this at work, and I've been looking for a rational alternative.
I mean, if you're whiteboarding in Teams, the Microsoft product is a reasonable choice. Because you've already drunk the Kool-Aid.
I'm trying to get people to realize that there are alternatives to the Microsoft online world. They're blown away when you show them one. They think that you're from outer space, but there are things that exist that work just fine that don't happen to be at O365.
Yep, the Windows world is backing into a similar walled garden to the Apple walled garden. Kind of creepy. Stockholm syndrome.
Yeah, they get you into the ecosystem though. So like they're like, well, if this works here, you can access it from this app and this app and the other app. And it's now you're in an ecosystem, which is a very good way to keep people in that walled garden. And as it's an MIT affiliate, it's very surprising that that's what the culture has turned into. But it's office workers. Office workers are the same the world around.
Bill, do you know if there's any a browser, maybe a server-side version of software that can run the thing through a web page?
I'm sorry, are you asking for a browser-based server-side version of mind mapping?
I was thinking of something that people could look at it on the BLU website, to look at slides and actually play with it.
I hear Microsoft has a good offering.
Yeah, but I won't have an export as.
Fair.
I'll take a look and see what it has for exports. You may just get a very large PNG.
Actually, if you look, because I downloaded the software already, that actually you'll do things like LaTeX, Markdown, MediaWiki, also HTML, or JPEG. It might be worth exploring. There's actually a lot of export formats that this thing has, but I can imagine your mileage will vary on what they look like.
Yes.
I guess it wouldn't be that bad if people had to like download the file and install pre-claim if they want to look at it.
Alternative2.net is your friend. They're a catalog of software that relates to other software, and they have nice little warnings that say that, hey, you probably don't want to use this software because it's bad for you. Alternative2.net.
Clever.
Oh yeah, sorry, my bad. But I'm now going to take an alternative to .net and point it to something with banner ads. Thank you.
So there's Plant UML, which seeks to be included inside of text editors and wikis and stuff. That looks like it might get you somewhere towards an online version of a mind map. There's TiddlyMap for TiddlyWiki. I don't know anything about these products.
10 years ago. I remember TiddlyWiki was you could put a whole interactive story within a single JavaScript page. I think it was a Windows app called Twee that generated those as output.
So, Jerry, you said you're not going to be able to make the Install Fest, the next one. Are other people going to be there? Is it still going to happen, or are they putting it on hold?
Oh, that I have 3 different places to be that day, and family probably comes first.
Almost.
Yeah, I can't. Well, I can't drive a week, and I certainly can't walk from Campus Center over to McCormick.
Yeah, Jerry, if it were during a weekend, I could give you a ride, but getting you from one part of the building to the other would probably be a little more difficult.
I think they may have fixed our bandwidth problems. This was pretty good.
Oh, you think it's an improvement?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, the compressed JPEG is good enough for this small net.
Billy, son, you can't make it to the Install Fest either?
Doesn't look it. My mother went and invited the family, including 2 ham radio people, for steaks on ham radio field day weekend, which is bad planning.
I think it was just me and Glenn there. It's not going to work. We
Yeah, I
need,
think
2
you're
more
right.
volunteers.
I think you're right.
What day of the week is it?
We need to schedule. A Saturday?
It's a week from Saturday.
Yeah. 27th.
Does anybody else have any other presentations?
No, it's just the 3 of us, unless someone else wants to go.
No, I'm just asking because I got a question for all of you guys before I head out 'cause I get to work.
Go ahead.
All right, so it's actually 2-part questions, and I want all of you guys because you guys have some extensive experience. So the first one is, what is the deeper system problems that you guys see in your professions? Do you think it's technology, human behavior, policies, or infrastructure? And then my last question is, if you guys had a chance to design the next generation, which would be me, because I'm in school, of the ethical portion of you guys' professions from scratch, what do you guys think would be your principal non-negotiables? And go. And I'm taking notes.
These are good questions.
Contrary to engineers, software people's beliefs, the people parts of systems are the hard parts. We don't want to believe that, but it's true.
I think we can build ethics into LLMs and learning. That's what OpenAI was founded as, was they were going to be the ethical AI company. And, we keep finding exploits. Amazon found a jailbreak in what was it, Opus 5, Fable, Mythos. So they had to pull it off the market. I'd like to think that was an honest mistake on Anthropic's part, but maybe it wasn't. But still, I think they can build in 100% guardrails. We're just not there yet.
Well, I guess we could call it a night now.
Is it Anastasia? Is that your name? Sorry if I'm pronouncing it wrong.
It's okay. It's Anastasia.
Anastasia, apologies. I think that it's possible that you'll get better answers to your questions if you put them on the discussion list, because it'll give people time to form an answer, not in real time. I do think they're good questions, but I think the discussion list will get you some better answers.
Okay, I'm gonna let Professor know. I'm gonna send them to him earlier.
Okay, you can send me some email if you want.
Okay. But I gotta head out, you guys. It's almost time for me to get to work. I got about 20 minutes to get there. But thank you so much.
Oh,
Thank
thank you
you.
for coming, Anastasia.
Have a good one.
I'll see you guys next meeting.
See you next meeting. Anna was one of my students.
Oh, that's awesome.
She is about Gwen's age. Her father, who just passed away, was a colonel in the Army. And she, while she was in my class, she then was approved for the direct master's program. So she's going directly for, instead of getting a bachelor's, she's going directly for a master's.
Oh wow.
She's
So
pretty smart.
it's not dual degree. You literally don't get a bachelor's and get a master's instead.
I'm not 100% sure.
Okay. Well, very cool though. It must be whip smart and dedicated enough to do that.
She has helped a lot of students in my class. If a student had a problem with logging into the system or something, she was able to help. And so that was good. She actually worked, I'm not sure exactly where she worked, but she worked in the government in cryptology.
In which case she probably can't say.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah.
The 40 some years ago, my buddy Mike, who helped build the internet, was the last smoker in the department before we banned smoking indoors. And so he lucked out when we got a former Air Force sergeant, linguist, cryptologist, transferred into the department as a uniform to business suit transition. He got an amazing redhead as office mate because, well, yeah, the linguist cryptologist was a smoker. He had the only smoking office, and he was eligible for a roommate because he
That's
didn't have
good
the
luck.
rank that he should have had.
Yep.
I will say that I have great respect for the linguistics department at Monterey Postgraduate School. Even if the people in the linguistics program aren't all postgraduates. Some of them are sergeants.
Yep. That doesn't mean a sergeant can't graduate from college and have a degree.
The
Doesn't.
Air Force, we've got an Air Force cadet as a summer intern right now, and his normal job is flying both F-14s and F-35s. But for the summer, he'll sit around and do math with us.
Nice.
Yeah, we had a guy in our unit. He was in the first platoon. who had, I don't know if he had his college degree. He was a warrant officer, but I don't know if he had a college degree or a master's or a PhD.
Warrant
But he,
officers are just weird anyway.
well, warrant officers are cases where the Army would take an enlisted man and make him a pilot. If he went through the pilot training course, he'd become a warrant officer.
Yeah. Yeah. Army aviation, the warrant officers are more normal than other parts of the Army.
Yes.
And the rest of the Army, they're unicorns.
Yes.
There's technical experts that need to be retained, but you can't make them an E9 because you only get one command sergeant major
Right.
per large unit. And so you make them warrants, and they're the specialist. And the alternative is in seriously rear echelon is making them civilian Department of the Army or Navy. But
So, yeah.
So are these
in
people with like,
headquarters that works. In deployable units, not so much. So then in the deployables, your tech experts are warrants.
so
Yep.
these are people with very specific tech knowledge that don't fit into any part of the chain that you have to have a place to put them, and that's what
Right.
you make them as a. We've got that at my office. I'm asking
Yeah,
because it
and
seems to be pretty universal.
one table of organization I was looking at had a grand total of one warrant in the HQ and HQ company, and I'm pretty sure that was the band leader.
Awesome.
Yeah. We have applications or whatever, but he was the one who got us a 50 kW generator that should have gone to another unit. And the educated guy I was talking about, he stole a pallet of beer.
Useful skills.
Yep.
Wasn't there a movie about that recently? No, it was like the best drop in Vietnam or something like that, where it was all about dropping beer. I'll have to look it up.
Oh, okay. Vaguely related to both enlisted cryptologists and supply sergeants. When my dad graduated from Morse code intercept school at Fort Devens, they'd been warned that their new military occupational specialty was classified. They couldn't tell people what they did, but they were told that they should send their diploma from Morse code intercept school to their mothers to be framed. And Dad asked the colonel handing out the diplomas if this made any sense. And the colonel looked at him and said, "Son, don't ask me to explain the Army to you." But
It's things.
when the guys in the narrow ties descended on the small town to do the background investigation for Dad's clearance to go off to his posting, the town clammed up. It's a small town. George is a good boy. We don't know what troubles he's in, but we're not saying nothing. He eventually calls home from a payphone, and Mother tells him what's going on. He said, "Okay, they're doing the background check so that I can get a job that doesn't involve carrying a gun. Tell them to go ahead and please talk." But while he's waiting for this clearance, he's given a make work job. He's assigned to the Fort Devens dairy warehouse, where they deliver the milk, cream, and ice cream to all the mess halls once a day. The dairy sergeant made sure that they wouldn't run out of ice cream on the delivery run by loading a couple more gallons on the truck than had been requested. And that way, if some mess sergeant said, "Can I get 2 strawberry instead of," there'd be a spare strawberry they could swap. But this also meant there were 2 half-melted 5-gallon buckets of ice cream left on the truck when it got back. It would be a shame to waste it. There were spoons kept on the loading dock just for this eventuality.
Yeah.
Always be prepared.
Yeah. Dad did not consider himself a cryptologist, nor a spy, nor a radio operator. He pushed a broom and made coffee, and other people ran the radio. But it was probably, he stayed back at Morse Code Intercept School, which probably saved him from going to either Eritrea or Turkey. And he drew DC instead. Well, Manassas. And that was probably a good thing.
Is that
but
where the
for
antennas were?
Yeah, for future, for a future guidance counselor to experience social promotion out of Morse Code Intercept School was probably good. If you know about such things, Vint Hill Station. It was until recent times still an NSA listening post. The post has been nicely redeveloped. The museum founded by Gary Francis Power's son, the Cold War Museum, is there under new management as Gary Francis Jr. is on his international book tour. And the new management has done it nicely. The commanding officer's quarters are a bed and breakfast. There's a brewery, a winery, and a cafe, all sharing parking with the museum. The FAA still has a listening post there for long haul air traffic control. So there's still government antennas at Vint Hill Farm, which is a nice nod to history.
I took a tour of the Devens Museum recently, and Devens has a really fascinating history. Colin Powell was stationed there early in his career. Yeah, lots of interesting people went through Devens either to hit one of their schools, or I guess at its high water mark there was a a Forscom unit there, but yeah, it's probably about 25% of the real estate it used to be. There's certainly still an area that's fenced off, but Devens Industrial Park has a bunch of interesting startups that are, I don't know how long they'll be there for, but yeah, it's a nice location.
I was there for my ROTC summer camp.
Oh, really?
Yep. Also, recently I've been looking at Fusion, and Commonwealth Fusion is located in Devens. They recently signed a contract, I think in Virginia, to build a nuclear fusion power plant.
Yeah, luckily they're not actually building the plant at Devens.
Yeah.
No, it'd be nice if they would.
Profitable fusion power has been 25 years in the future for 50 years.
Yep.
I just like less booms coming from Devens. We still hear them out where we are.